Indigenous communities in Brazil are protesting deforestation of the Amazon, as well as a lack of support to face the COVID-19 pandemic. Fears are growing in Spain as health authorities have reported over 16,000 new COVID-19 cases in the past 3 days. Thousands protested in Sudan on Monday, demanding the transitional government speed up political reforms. From the headquarters of Teleso English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. And we begin in Brazil, where dozens of members of the Kayapo indigenous community have blocked the Trans-Amazonian Highway to protest against deforestation, as well as the lack of support provided by the Jair Bolsonaro government in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. President Bolsonaro recently claimed that it was a lie that fires were ravaging the Amazon rainforest, despite data from his own government showing the rising number of blazes. The far-right leader has faced international condemnation for his failure to protect the Amazon from rising deforestation and increased fires. Satellite data from the Brazilian Space Agency shows that the number of forest fires rose 28% in the last year. Experts say the fires are typically not sparked naturally, but intentionally started to illegally clear land for farming. Rural workers in the Altiplano region of Guatemala have denounced violent acts against indigenous and rural communities. The Rural Workers Committee of the Altiplano denounced the lack of interest on the part of the authorities in clarifying the events surrounding the murders of 40 rural families at a farm in Alta Verapaz. The committee accused the business sector and the government of provoking the violent acts, as the families were working at the farm before being evicted by armed groups. The organisation has called on the public ministry to open an investigation into the armed groups and the owners of the farm in order to avoid an increase in the killings and evictions of rural workers. Bolivian health authorities have reported over 1,000 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours, pushing the total number over 100,000. The epicenters of the outbreak in the country are the cities of Santa Cruz, with more than 38,000 cases reported, followed by La Paz with over 25,000 and Cochabamba with more than 11,000 cases. Meanwhile, Bolivian health authorities have forecast that the epidemic will reach its peak come September. The COVID-19 death toll stands at 4,058, but the official numbers are thought to fall short of the reality. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has stressed that the COVID-19 vaccine to be produced in Argentina will be made available to all Mexicans. He explained that the drug is already in phase 3 of trials and is being tested on hundreds of people.
It is thought that we will be able to have this vaccine ready in the first quarter of next year. We will have a national vaccination plan, and it is going to be universal medicine, which means that it will be available for everyone.
And President López Obrador also noted that the vaccine will be provided free of charge.
The government is going to pay for it using the national budget, which is Mexican people's money. The vaccine will be available to everyone in the country for free.
On Monday, Cuban health authorities presented the latest update on the number of COVID-19 cases in the country.
And yesterday, 48 people tested positive for COVID-19 in our country, a high figure compared to the number of cases the day before. With these 48 new cases, Cuba reaches a total of 3,364 people who have tested positive for COVID-19 in our country.
And the National Director of Epidemiology of the Cuban Ministry of Public Health also presented an updated report on the number of people who have recovered from COVID-19.
These 72 discharges are from Havana, 50 from Pinal del Rio, 1 from Artemisa, 12 from Mayabeque, 1 from Matanzas, 2 from Villa Clara, and 2 from Santiago de Cuba, who were discharged yesterday. Normally, these cases are admitted in Havana, but they belong to those provinces. Although some are in their own provinces, we always mention the 2 people who were evacuated, and with these 72 discharges that we have just mentioned, the total number of recoveries is 2,692, which represents 80% of all the confirmed cases in Cuba.
Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Marrero announced that the annual International Tourism Fair will be postponed to May 2021. Marrero confirmed that the major tourism event of the country will be held in the world-famous resort of Varadero. During a visit to Matanzas province, the Prime Minister also chaired a virtual meeting of the temporary working group for the prevention and control of COVID-19, which analyses the situation in the country daily. The Ministry of Health of the Turks and Caicos Islands reported that no new cases of COVID-19 have been detected in the last 24 hours. The number of active cases remains at 240, with 2 confirmed cases continuing to be under hospital care. The public health team continues to implement contact tracing and control measures in relation to every active case. No new recoveries have been recorded, with the total number remaining at 55. The total number of cases confirmed in the country since the outbreak of the virus stands at 298. The COVID-19 death toll stands at 2.
Non-residents that have recently visited countries that are impacted by high transmission.
Guyana, Suriname and the Bahamas in the Caribbean region have all registered further coronavirus deaths. Suriname announced that 5 people died from the virus over the last 24 hours, representing the highest figure in any one day in the South American nation. The new deaths bring the total to 43. Meanwhile, neighbouring Guyana registered its 23rd COVID-19 death on Sunday, while the Ministry of Health reported that the number of positive cases had surpassed 700. The Ministry of Health in the Bahamas continues to record significant numbers of cases among its population. In its latest bulletin, 63 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed, bringing a total number to 1,315, while 1 new COVID-19 fatality was confirmed, taking the death toll to 18. I will be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The latest COVID-19 figures in Spain have sparked fear among health experts and residents alike, as the number of cases has increased substantially over the past 3 days.
Been an increase of 16,000 cases in the past 3 days. It's true that these also include the portion of older cases, now included with some delayed, but the majority is of recent dates. Diagnosed with yesterday's date, Sunday, we have notified 1,833 cases, and in the last 7 days, within the dates of the last 7 days, we have notified people with the beginning of their symptoms, 5,327.
More than 21.8 million COVID-19 cases have now been confirmed worldwide, according to the latest data from the World Health Organization. The WHO also reported that the global death toll stands at over 773,000. On a positive note, more than 14.5 million patients have recovered from the virus. The United States and Brazil remain the hardest hit nations by the pandemic. The 2 countries also have the highest death tolls in the world. The US has reported over 173,000 deaths, while Brazil has confirmed nearly 108,000 fatalities. China's National Intellectual Property Administration announced that it had granted the first invention patent to a domestically developed COVID-19 vaccine candidate. The AD5nCoV vaccine is co-developed by the Beijing Institute of Biotechnology, CanSino Biologics biopharmaceutical company, and a team led by Chinese military infectious disease expert Chen Wei. The patent application was filed on March 18th and approved on August 11th. According to a document published on the Intellectual Property Administration website, the vaccine can be mass-produced in a short time in the event of an outbreak. The CanSino company noted in a statement on Sunday that the granting of the patent further confirmed the vaccine's effectiveness and safety. On Monday, the Chinese government urged the United States to stop its smear campaigns against Chinese companies and to cease attacks on non-US enterprises in the name of national security.
For some American politicians, national security seems to have become the best excuse for them to provoke troubles for other nations, and become even their most powerful weapon to wantonly suppress non-American enterprises. The US claims that enterprises like TikTok are impairing its national security, but even the relevant reports from the CIA indicate that there is no evidence that China intercepts any data with TikTok or using the app to hack into the phones of the users. A relevant think tank of the US also pointed out that it has nothing to do with national security to ban an app only because the app belongs to a Chinese company. All the above prove that the so-called freedom and security are only excuses for the digital gunboat policies pursued by some US politicians. The bullying practices have ironically challenged the market economy as well as the principle of fair competition for which the US has been a self-claimed champion. The behaviors violated the international trade rules and wantonly vandalized the interests of other nations, which will in the end impair the US own interests. We urge the US to correct its wrongdoings immediately, stop slandering and smearing China, and cease suppressing non-American enterprises for no reason.
And regarding a newly signed deal for the United States to sell 66 of its latest model F-16 fighter jets to Taiwan, the Chinese Foreign Ministry repeated China's firm opposition to any US arms sales to the island.
We urge the US to fully recognize the serious harm of the arms sales to Taiwan, abide by the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 Sino-US joint communiques, and stop arms sales and military interaction with Taiwan, so as to avoid serious damage to China-US relations and peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, has ruled out a repeat of the presidential election in the face of external pressure. The Belarusian president made the statement during a speech in his visit to a heavy-load truck factory in Minsk, where he also pointed out the negative impacts of a second election on the automobile industry. Likewise, Lukashenko said that he's considering the possibility of changing the country's constitution to reduce the powers of the president. Belarus is experiencing post-electoral protests following President Lukashenko's re-election with over 80% of the vote. The authorities have stressed that the disturbances are being orchestrated by foreign interests, keen to see a change of government that would present a further blow to neighbouring Russia. And meanwhile, from her residence in Lithuania, opposition Belarusian presidential candidate Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya stated that she is willing to act as a national leader during a supposed transitional period. The candidate failed to secure major support during the election and is supported by Western interests. The United Nations Children's Fund Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa conducted an official visit to Lebanon this Monday in the wake of the devastating blast in Beirut.
We are committed to continuing to support the children of this country. We estimate that 100,000 children were directly impacted by the blast, but every child in Beirut is affected. We estimate that in Greater Beirut area there's around 600,000 children. Working with the schools that have been affected to find alternative placements for children. What is important with the new school year is that 55,000 children who are in those 120 schools have alternative pathways to learning and don't drop out, can continue with their education. UNICEF is appealing for $46.3 million as its contribution to the national response. This involves our support to water and sanitation, to health, to psychosocial support for children, and to education.
German authorities held talks with representatives of Libya's United Nations recognized government on Monday to address the internal situation across the country.
Even if, for now, the weapons have mostly fallen silent, it is a deceptive calm. Through the flow of arms on both sides from international backers, there remains a great danger of military escalation. We support the UN's main proposal that is first step process the disarmament and demilitarization of the city of Sirte. Libya's UN-recognized government of national accord strongly rejects the mission Irene, which looks good from outside but bad in reality, because as it is right now, it's only towards the unity government not to let her receive any help to counter the aggression, and it does not monitor the export of weapons and mercenary fighters by air and sea and via the Egyptian-Libyan territorial borders.
Now we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Thousands of people took to the streets on Monday in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, demanding the transitional government speed up political reforms. Holding flags and banners calling for justice, peace and reform of the security sector, demonstrators gathered in front of the Sudanese cabinet's headquarters in order to deliver a list of demands, including the formation of a legislative body. The protest took place on the occasion of the first anniversary of the constitutional declaration aimed at establishing a military-civilian coalition to lead a transitional sovereign council following the overthrow of former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir in April 2019. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has noted that issues of justice remain one of the most important tasks of his government, together with a modernisation of state institutions.
The course of the revolution should be corrected. We are calling the military's presence in the government a clear and specific obstacle. There is nothing called a power-sharing agreement. This is an obstacle on the path of the revolution.
We are out today to continue the struggle to achieve the revolution demands: freedom, peace and justice. Justice has not been served over the killing of protesters, and they are still free, those who killed them, and not being brought to justice.
United Nations authorities have condemned a car bombing attack that occurred at the beachfront Elite Hotel in Somalia's capital Mogadishu on Sunday.
That the fight against al-Shabaab and against all forms of violent extremism in Somalia must continue. The Secretary General reiterates the support and solidarity of the United Nations with the government and people of Somalia in their pursuit for peace, stability, and prosperity.
On Monday, Israeli artillery attacked two locations north and south of the Gaza Strip, causing serious damage but no casualties. The Israeli artillery stationed east of Bet Hanon, north of the Gaza Strip, fired 3 shells at a location east of the city, causing damage to the surrounding area and property. The second attack was launched against a location east of the town of Khan Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip, completely destroying it. Israel has recently escalated its attacks on the besieged Gaza Strip, including cutting off fuel supplies, forcing the Gaza power plant to cease operations. On Monday, the Syrian news agency Sana reported that US fighter jets bombed a Syrian army checkpoint in the city of Al-Kamishli in the northeastern province of Al-Hasaka. According to the agency, 1 Syrian soldier was killed and 2 others wounded as a result of the attack. It was also reported that the wounded had already been taken to nearby hospitals to receive medical care. The bombing took place after Syrian forces blocked the passage of a US military patrol at a checkpoint in Tal Dajab, southeast of the city of Al-Kamishli. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed more than 1.1 million COVID-19 cases in the continent this Monday. According to the latest figures, more than 25,000 COVID-19 deaths have been reported across Africa. South Africa remains the hardest hit country with over 587,000 COVID-19 cases and nearly 12,000 deaths. Egypt ranks second with more than 96,000 infections and over 5,000 deaths. They're followed by Nigeria with a little more than 49,000 cases and just under 1,000 deaths. On a positive note, over 834,000 people are reported to have recovered from the virus across the African continent. On Monday, India's COVID-19 death toll surpassed 51,000 after 961 new fatalities were reported in the last 24 hours. India has reported the 4th highest death toll in the world, behind the United States, Brazil and Mexico. Meanwhile, the number of confirmed coronavirus cases surpassed 2.6 million on Monday after a surge of over 58,000 cases in the last 24 hours. August has seen a huge spike in fatalities, with more than a quarter of the country's total COVID-19 deaths occurring in the past 17 days. Meanwhile, over 1.9 million people have recovered from the virus.
We're getting these increased number of cases. Number one, people are almost over it. They think it's not harming them anymore. It's not giving them any drawback. Corona is just a word of mouth. It's just a rumor. Number two, we didn't have much tests available earlier. Now there are a lot of government facilities as well as private. So people are going out for all these tests and stuff.
On Monday, the Nigerian government announced that international flights will resume at both the Lagos and Abuja airports from August 29th. Minister of Aviation Sarika Hadi made the announcement on his Twitter account. The minister noted that both the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos and the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja would be the first airports to begin international operations. These two airports were also the first to welcome domestic flights when they resumed. The minister stressed that the applicable protocols and procedures would be announced in due course.
The government is going ahead with reopening these airspace for domestic.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesoenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Teleso English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.